Okay, cool. So I think that being that the majority of us are in some kind of form of isolation, it can be a really great opportunity to change how we interact with other people. So before we go back out into the world, if we can understand certain quantum theories about entanglement, interference theory, and how that relates to human exchange, particularly when we're navigating the more manipulative personality types. So I would say, honestly, there's probably not a person on the planet who hasn't had to move through and negotiate the manipulator. And really, this conversation is to take some of what we know from quantum physics, which we are living in the quantum field, and how we can take those principles to protect ourselves, and so that we can live a life that is a little bit safer, both physically and emotionally, as well as spiritually. So that's my goal in making this. I guess my great love of studying and learning about quantum physics started to evolve in 2009 when my personal experience and how I related to the world around me began to change. And I guess I had been engaged in a daily meditative practice for about 10 years, yoga, and the real ingredient that shifted my perceptual apparatus was when I started bringing light therapy into my daily protocol. So that means I'd started using the near, mid, and far infrared light in terms of sauna therapy. I was also using color light therapy, and additionally using sun gazing in my meditation. Sun gazing is something that a person really needs to be a little cautious around. So if you're interested in sun gazing, ask me in a direct message or a private message or a comment if this is on YouTube. Sun gazing needs to happen during the golden hour. So I would never recommend staring straight into the sun like at high noon. Topic for another day. What that means is how I was literally perceiving the world around me in conscious waking life, as well as the non-local dreams I was having. I just wanted to know what the fuck was happening to me. And quantum physics, the quantum model, can explain all of my experiences. Furthermore, we live in a time where science and the state are unified in a marriage. So most of us really want the validation that science affords us. And so, about 300 or 400 years ago, the state and the church were married, and so we really wanted the validation of, could the Bible quantify and validate our experience? Now, societally, we look towards science to validate experience. That's fine. Totally fine, because it's just such a wonderful time to be alive on the planet. We're alive in a time where science can explain what the ancients have known since before recorded history. And that's so exciting because we see that marriage occurring, and when we see that marriage occurring, we're also able to blend the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, the masculine and the feminine as well. And so we're coming into a whole new world order, which is I'm just so grateful that I got to incarnate and participate and witness this transition in history. That's the background. So I would say we could agree that around 1925 was when the shift occurred, where we stopped believing that the Newtonian model of physical reality was the most accurate description, and we started to understand that quantum physics provided a truer version, a truer explanation to the world around us. Now, 95 years later, the vast majority of us are still abiding within a Newtonian paradigm. We're still looking to a skeleton to explain our physical anatomy, which is really absurd because this living, breathing organism emanating photons, emanating magnetic field, emanating electricity, that doesn't happen in like a cadaver or a skeleton. So if we really want to understand physical anatomy, we're going to have to look to the energy model. We are all energy, and okay, well, that doesn't really fucking mean anything to me. Why can you see me and perceive me the way that you do right now is because of the photons emitted off of my body and reflected off of my body from the light around. Lights go off and you can't see me. So, that being said, this is what is about to follow. If I could go back to my younger self and teach her this, I might have been able to avert some pretty dangerous situations, dangerous personalities. Certainly in my position as a mother, I encourage my child to move through the world feeling and picking up on the energy emission to both animals, individuals, and places. So we're not taught in traditional schools that our feelings are a valid means to making decisions. We're taught that the logic coming from the left brain and the words that we hear have greater weight in the balance of things than how we're feeling, say, in our gut or in our heart, just the feeling we get. So when we look at interference patterns, if we can imagine that we take two stones, same size, and we drop them into a pool at the same time, those stones start to create ripples that circle and circle and circle, and there's a coherent harmony, and there's also an exponential growth that occurs. Interference pattern, for example, I take one beautiful little rock, drop it in the pond, and it starts to ripple these beautiful waves, creating all these patterns. Then I take a big heavy rock, say 2 seconds later, drop it in, and boom. The beauty and the pattern created by that first pebble is interfered with. We can, when we are dealing with the manipulative personality, whether that be a parent, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a teacher, a boss, a coworker, whatever, what happens to us, and the reason it's abuse. So just being a blatant asshole is not abuse. Even getting punched, that's physical assault, but it's not necessarily abuse. Abuse happens when there's a discrepancy between the words that are being spoken to you and the energy field coming off the person. So the majority of people living with a narcissistic personality disorder, I'm not going to talk about that, they're great talkers. They can convince you of all kinds of things with their words, and yet you're feeling something else coming off of them. I just want to take a parenthetical note to say I work as a writer. I talk a fuck of a lot. I think that language is beautiful. I love words. The average woman speaks about 30,000 words a day. I probably, including the writing, I'm upwards of 70,000 words a day. So I love words. And yet, if we can consider the manipulator, you might be around someone and you might get a feeling in your gut that it's not lining up, and yet they're saying with their words, I love you, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, but that is not, there's a plane going overhead, that is not coherent to what their energy field is putting off. Their energy field might be putting off the following. You emit a lot of light photons, and that translate as great joy and a great abundance of source energy, and I don't really know how to create my own source energy, so I'm going to suck off of you, and that's where the abuse comes. And yet with the language that they're using, they're saying, I'll do anything for you, I love you, baby, or they might be sending text messages, hey beautiful, lots of like angel emojis or whatever the fuck that is, and yet the energy field is doing something else. The energy field might be saying, I'm really threatened by you, I'm really jealous. So abuse happens when there's an incoherence between the magnetic, electrical, and photon emission off of someone's body, right? And the words that they're speaking. So the advice that I give you as we start to move back into the world, start to have interactions with the people around us, listen to them, that's fine. But listen closer to what's going on in your belly. You may not be at the point in your personal evolution where you can see the aura, which is just like the color light photons coming off of people. You might not be there yet, and that's okay. But you can listen to your gut. You can listen to your heart. You can listen to, I'm just going to take a step back. That is a valid form of receiving information. So the next time someone says, can we talk about this? Did we discuss this? Maybe just stop here. You don't need to be receiving all those words. All you need to know is how you're feeling when you're in a certain place and when you're around a certain person. Furthermore, I think the next time, because we're getting the time is going past, I'd like to talk a little bit about entanglement, non-local knowingness. But for now, consider the interference pattern offered to us through quantum physics. Consider how you relate to the people around you given that information. So you want to be around individuals who frequency emanating off their physical body, doesn't matter what the fuck they look like. You're talking about the frequency. You want your frequency to match their frequency, so that what happens when there's lateral exchange is an exponential experience of love and creativity. The next time you feel, so I'm just going to part with the following. Pay attention. If you come into a situation and you're full of joy and everything's wonderful, and 2 minutes go by and suddenly you kind of start to feel like a little shitty, maybe not too much, and then that person keeps talking and then you sort of feel a little bit tired. So pay attention to your own mood. So the narcissist is going to leave an imprint on you. They will look, speak, sound different each from another, but the imprint that they leave on the empath is always going to be the same. Does anxiety increase? Anxiety is often because we're believing in words and not listening to what's happening in the belly, and then we get that awful anxious feeling like I'm not safe, and yet I'm not listening to that. Listen, as anxiety increase, do you become more tired? Does your mood plummet? Are you able to sleep with less ease? Are you experiencing a weakened immunity as a result of spending time with this individual or in that place? So quantum physics teaches us just because you can't see something, smell it, feel it, taste it, doesn't mean it's not valid and that it's not happening. So I beseech you, take me as a cautionary tale. I'm happy to be everyone's cautionary tale. Listen to your feelings, and when something comes up and it doesn't feel quite okay, that's a valid and good enough reason to step back. Particularly if you're engaged in a daily meditative practice, really you should be, I want to say the word should be. I need to meditate 2 to 3 times a day, right? That's what I need to be able to do to stay healthy. I need to be able to be in the light at least once a day. So if you're doing those things and you're cleaning your own vessel, you have every right to believe in and feel that your feelings are just valid enough reason compared to what you cognitively should be believing in. I hope that this information is helpful to you. I hope that as we start to come out of isolation, out of quarantine, that maybe we can start to alter the kinds of interactions we're having with others and with places and with things. Final note, just have to add this one more thing. Human beings are the only species on the planet that uses verbal language. So, animals, they go on how they're feeling. And if they come up to a situation, a person, a place, or another mammal and doesn't feel okay, they don't doubt, they just walk away because there's not the opportunity to bridge with words a false reality. Does that make sense? So just like animals, we're allowed to trust in the energy field of what we're picking up, right? This is information is constantly being exchanged between people, people and places, people and things, people and plants, people and animals. And you, my loves, are allowed to trust in what you're feeling, even if it can't be articulated in words. That's all for now. I really do hope this was helpful for you. I'm going to do my little hair, do my little walk on the catwalk. I love you all. Good luck in your isolation. Let me know if you have any specific questions about some of the content that we discussed today. And wait, one more time. I was your teacher.